Hello, gorgeous people, and welcome back
to episode 3 of Sugar and Spice, your weekly podcast exploring all things feminine through the lens of two very different women. I'm Sugar.
And I'm Spice. And today we're joined by the amazing Laura Miano, sexologist and founder of sex toy concept store, Posmo.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We're so excited to have you. We have so many juicy things to talk about.
Yes.
Should we start with an outfit check?
Absolutely.
Gorgeous.
Okay, the guest goes first.
Okay, so I'm wearing...
stand up, baby.
Oh, okay.
Laura is wearing a base range dress, a super cute vintage belt, really cute Miu Miu shoes, and a Prada bag.
We love it. So hot. Lexi is wearing a beautiful pink meshki dress. Necklace is from Naked Fashion. The bag is Fendi, and the shoes are from ASOS. Hot.
Spice is wearing a Raga Malik dress, a beautiful handmade artisan necklace from Athens, vintage shoes, and a vintage bag. We're going to start today by getting to know you. I'm just going to ask you a few questions about who you are and what you do. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to start off with a question. It might sound so silly, but I honestly was thinking about it yesterday, and I don't fully understand the concept of sexology. Mm-hmm. So can you explain to us what sexology is and I guess why it's important?
Yes, so sexology is the scientific study of human sexuality and sexual behaviours. The field is kind of broad. It encompasses things like education, clinical work, research. I'm a sex therapist, so I do clinical work. Mm-hmm. And the topics that can be explored in sexology are things like sexual anatomy, pleasure anatomy, desires, arousal, orgasm, and sexual concerns like erectile dysfunction, orgasm, sexual pain, lots of different things like that.
Amazing. I think it's so important because it's such a grey area. I feel like for a lot of women, when you're thinking about sex, obviously school doesn't really do a lot, so there are a lot of question marks, and I feel like a field like this is very important for helping us guide our way through.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really hard for good sex education to kind of filter through because there's so much stigma.
Yeah.
So there's not really people pushing for it because people, find it uncomfortable to talk about.
Yeah.
And there's not many people in sexology as well, so there's not a whole lot of research that's been done. So it's definitely a new field, but it's exciting.
Very, very exciting.
On that topic, I actually have a really interesting story. Mm-hmm. So somebody had told me that a particular private school in Melbourne, that the boys were doing something horrific. So I went into the school and spoke to the principal with a little presentation telling the school why their sex education program was outdated, like the proliferation of information technology and how the education has not come up to speed at the same level. Mm-hmm. And so everyone's learning things from the internet that can be quite dangerous. Yeah. And there's a lack of education around consent and everything. And then I posted on my Instagram, and then a lot of young girls had come forward and said that there were problems at other private schools. So I'd called them and asked them, what programs are you doing to teach children about consent and all of these things? And the responses were quite humorous, i.e. one of Melbourne's most prestigious private schools had told me that they teach their boys about the teacup method, and I was like, what's that?
What is that?
And he was saying, well, just because a girl wants tea on a Monday morning doesn't mean that she wants tea on a Tuesday afternoon. And then she might not want tea on the weekend, but she could want it on a Sunday. And I was like, you're teaching young boys full of testosterone and hormones about tea parties? This does not seem adequate.
No.
Anyways, the schools had all said to me that they wanted to change their programs, and a lot of them had actually been called out within that year about different things. So, yeah, it's so good to have people like you around on the internet teaching people about this stuff because it's so important.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, it's hard because there's so much censorship. Mm-hmm. It's hard to be really direct with people, but I think a space like a school where, it's not being filtered through Instagram's algorithm and whatnot, where young people really need to hear the real raw information.
100%.
And filtering it down like that and calling it tea is just so ineffective.
100%.
Yeah, so I'm happy to be able to just be on Instagram and, I try and dodge all of the censorship. But yeah, it's nice to be able to speak to the people directly.
And I heard something that was like Gen Z is having the least amount of sex out of any generation that's been. Yeah,
really?
Which I found really interesting.
I think it kind of
Like boomers are had more sex.
Wow.
Same ages as, and you'd think that like...
it's like social media's impact on like the perception of sex? Why do you reckon... Well, that's a question for Laura. Yeah.
I would say maybe stress could be like involved. I feel like we live such a high-paced lifestyle now. People don't have time to slow down, tap into eroticism and pleasure. That's what I would maybe suggest.
Maybe the internet also has opened up such a massive avenue for people to seek pleasure in other ways than like physical connection. Yeah.
On the topic of, I guess, like resources, where can young people look for resources on sex? Because school's not an option. If they, for example, haven't come across work like yours, what's an accessible method to like find good information about sex that isn't stigmatized or outdated?
I would say look for qualified sex therapists, sex educators on Instagram.
Interesting.
Who are educating people.
Yeah.
You could also look into apps like Furly and Karma and Oh My God, Yes. Or read books as well by qualified sex educators.
Okay.
One in particular is The Erotic Mind by Jack Marin. I actually brought that one here today.
Oh, amazing.
And Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. Both
Oh,
really
yes.
great ones.
I love her.
Yeah.
My love, sorry, you have an eyelash here. And I'm just going to take
Thank you.
We had this question a lot because we did a call out to the audience. So I'm going to ask you about maintaining, I guess, sexual attraction to partners, longevity. How do you keep it spicy? But also, if you start to lose attraction to your partner, are there reasons why, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different reasons why someone would lose attraction to their partners in relationships. This is something that I treat a lot in sex therapy.
Yeah.
I mean, it can come down to things like lifestyle factors. So, if you're super busy, you don't have time to slow down, kind of like what I was saying before, you're stressed, that could be playing into things. If you and your partner don't allow enough time to have fun and be sexy and silly and spontaneous, that can be playing into things. A lack of intimacy is a huge one, sorry. So I have a lot of people that come to me that don't have desire for their partners, and then they're also not really even like kissing their partners or cuddling their partners or being a bit cheeky. It's always like sex is really compartmentalized.
Okay, yeah.
Foreplay is so important.
Totally. And not even just during sex, foreplay throughout the whole day. A lot of people just like get into the bedroom at night and then they like flick all of the sex stuff on.
And then but foreplay should start, before you're
ends,
even there.
The moment sex ends.
Yeah. Can you unpack that a bit in terms of what do you mean by like, how can you have foreplay that isn't so compartmentalized?
Okay, so I guess you have sex. Sex ends, like the physical act of sex ends. And then you talk about how it was. You say, hey, that was really great. We can maybe try this next time or that next time. Or that made me think about how I'd really like to try this other thing.
Okay.
So now you're like planning for the future. The next morning you wake up and you're like, oh my God, fuck yeah, that was so fun last night. You have a little like sexy kiss, a little grope, and then you go about your day. You text each other and you say things like, hey baby, I'm really craving you. You just keep flirting throughout the day. Maybe when they come home, you tell them they look really good. You thank them for something that they've done for you. There's little cheeky touches, maybe little games like the push and pull.
I love that.
All of these things is what creates desire. It's foreplay. Yeah. So a lot of couples don't have that, and then they just expect everything to happen during sex, during the physical act of sex, and it makes it a lot harder.
And why do you think couples sometimes don't have that? Is it a disconnect in the way they experience intimacy, or is it they're just not compatible maybe sexually?
Compatibility would be a big one.
That was also a question that was asked a lot. Like, what if my sex drive is different to my partner's, more or less? Like, how do people overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, people can be compatible, and that's when it's really easy. So things just kind of like fall into place. But it doesn't mean you need it. People can work towards it. But in our modern like time, you know, you live with your partner, you have chores, you both have to work, you're both tired, you have to pay bills, and your relationship can become this place where it's just about, you know, getting jobs done.
Yeah.
And that's not really sexy.
It's like very routine and
And then like, you know, when you think about hanging out with your friends, it's always fun and you're your best self, and then your kind of partner is like the person that you're just a bit meh with.
Yeah. I've never thought of it that way, but yeah. And just a little back on the topic with, I've got a friend that has been in 2 relationships, and around the 4-month mark would just start to lose attraction. And because it happened one after the other, start to panic a bit. But I guess, what are the other external factors maybe in the relationship that can make one person start to pull away a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, there really are so many things. Like trauma, sexual trauma could be playing into it. I'd be interested to know like what they're pulling away from. Is it that they have to start communicating their needs? Is
Interesting,
is it maybe at the start it was easy because they were kind of more motivated to bring the person close, but then once they had them, there wasn't really a motivation to have sex anymore, which might come down to not knowing how to navigate their own pleasure during sex. I guess it could also be things like conflicts have come up in the relationship and they're unresolved. Maybe as well at that point the person is realizing that, you know, like the kind of limerence period, like the honeymoon period is starting to end, and they're starting to see their partner for what they truly are. And maybe they're not as keen on their partner as they thought before. So it's you know, reflecting in their desire.
Very interesting.
Another question that came up a lot was surrounding wetness. People not feeling like they're getting wet enough, or with their partners, or in general, anxiety leading to lack of wetness, or maybe getting more wet when they're alone. What's some advice surrounding wetness?
Wetness is a really interesting one because so there's been research that has shown your genital response, so becoming wet, becoming hard, becoming, you know, like the vulva becoming engorged, only actually matches up with how much arousal you're feeling, 10%. So that means, so a lot of the times people,
so interesting.
They might feel aroused and horny and like they want to have sex, but they're not wet. And also wetness is something that can be determined from like how hydrated you are, your diet.
I didn't know that.
Whoa,
okay, I guess it is all linked, but okay. Interesting.
So what kind of, you know, there's issues that can come up with wetness when people are like, oh my gosh, I'm not wet enough, and then they get anxious about not becoming wet enough.
100%.
And then that kills the mood.
So
I would say, you know, maybe don't hold so much importance. The other part though is, as I was saying before, the vulva needs to become engorged. It needs to become hard, just like a penis.
I didn't know this. I'm 28. Like, why do we not get taught these things? It's crazy.
I know. The clit becomes erect, literally.
Had no idea.
But that process can take 20 to 40 minutes.
Wow.
So
okay.
Foreplay is so important.
It's essential. So it could be that maybe someone's not leaving enough time for that to happen. And after 20 minutes, they're like, oh, it's not happening for me. But if they kind of kept it going and kept, you know, having fun and just feeling into the pleasure without putting too much
pressure on it.
It's
just so hard to do.
It might happen.
Also, lube is important.
Absolutely.
So what type of lube do you recommend? Oil-based, silicone-based? Like, is there a preference?
So I mean, there's a lube for every different occasion. Water-based lube is really good for silicone toys. So any kind of silicone sex toy, water-based won't interact with the toy at all. I would say I personally use silicone lube all the time. It feels like silk, and it's really good for like shower sex. It's kind of like waterproof. So I would probably recommend silicone lube in situations where you're not using silicone toys. It's also hypoallergenic. So for people who find that they get irritation with other lubes, they might find that silicone is best.
Would you say comparing to oil-based, silicone is better as well?
Silicone is good for using with condoms. Oil-based, you can't use with condoms.
Okay.
But really it comes down to personal preference. Like there's no one that's better than the other. It just comes down to what suits every person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did I not know there were 3 types of lubes? I'm like,
It's crazy.
how did I lube on this? And there's like so many options and
Yeah.
places you can use. And yeah.
Yeah.
But lube is important. Invest in lube. Don't be embarrassed to carry it around or like.
I feel like people sometimes, I don't know, if, maybe it's like a younger mentality, but almost like using lube is a bit of a downfall. Like it's a negative thing because the woman isn't as wet, but it's like it just enhances even if you are wet. Do you know what I mean? But I feel like there's a tiny, maybe it's just my perception of it, a tiny bit of a stigma around using lube because you feel like you're not performing in that sense. I don't know. Do you reckon that's a valid feeling?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think lubes in the past have really been like marketed really poorly. Like they come in these like gross little like plastic containers.
Yeah.
That's why at Posmo we're doing our own lube because we really wanted to make it like aesthetically pleasing. Yeah. So rather than it being like this gross stigmatized thing, making it like really sexy to bring out and it almost enhances things. Yeah. So yeah, I would say it kind of comes down to just like the products that have been on the market before.
Yeah,
it's
that's
a bit
true.
yucky.
Yeah. Back to talking about the vulva engorging. I was thinking about, because obviously with us as women, you know, with men getting erect, it's obviously so obvious that it's happening. And then I feel like we can get quite anxious because it's not as physically obvious. Yeah. Do you have any tips for like reducing anxiety when it comes to performance, I guess, for women? Yeah.
My number one tip would be mindfulness.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, mindfulness is what takes you out of your head and into your body. So, you know, being in your head sounds like I'm not turned on. This isn't, what is my partner thinking about me? Do I look good? Are they enjoying it? And then mindfulness is feeling the experience, thinking like, fuck, this feels so good, or oh my God, they look so hot, or wow, like I'm really enjoying this, the texture, thinking about like anything to do with the senses. So like the feeling, what you can see, what you can smell, maybe what you can taste, what you can hear.
Because I love mindfulness in everyday life, but I've never thought about it in the sexual realm.
Yeah, a lot of my clients know a lot about mindfulness, but when it comes to sex, it's just something that they didn't cross over into there. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is just what happened to me. I'm just like, wow, that makes a lot of sense.
And also another really popular question was surrounding squirting. Yeah. Can everyone squirt? Can only some people squirt? How do you squirt?
Yeah.
So tell us about squirting.
Yes, okay, fun. Yes, so I mean, I would say I haven't seen the exact research, but I did do a little bit of study on this a little while back because I created my own guide to squirting.
Wow.
Yeah, you can find it on my Instagram.
Yeah, we all need to read.
For you guys. Yeah, so most vulvas are able to squirt, most vulva owners. The way that you can do it is you need a toy that's hard. That's kind of like the most likely way of it happening. And it needs to be angled so it can target the G-spot, which is the area inside the vagina that's like ribbed. If you were to put fingers inside and like bend up, it's the little ribbed patch. If that area is like stimulated over a really long time and the person is really relaxed, eventually they'll start to feel aroused and then they'll start to feel like they're going to pee. A lot of people, when they feel that, will freak out and then be like, well, stop. You need to not freak out and let that feeling, like feel through that. And, you know, after a little bit of time, open the floodgates and the squirt will happen.
I love it. Get practicing, people. Get a mirror, understand your vagina, your vulva, get to know your body. That's so important. I feel like to enjoy sex, you have to really know your body. Like that's important. Like don't be scared, get a mirror. My mom told me to do that when I was like 12. She's like, go get a mirror, open your legs and get to know.
Where Charlotte's like.
Yeah. Some people have never looked at their vulvas.
I've never looked at it. Yeah. I guess we're also just not taught as women to.
No, there's so much shame. Yeah. There is so much shame surrounding that for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Another popular question was, how do you overcome vaginismus? And I guess maybe,
And what is
what is
vaginismus?
it?
Quite a common condition. I treat this in sex therapy. So basically it is, so you have muscles that surround your vagina. It's called your pelvic floor. And vaginismus is basically when those muscles involuntarily contract and they close the entrance to the vagina.
Wow.
So when people are trying to have penetrative sex, it's really painful.
Yeah.
What can cause it is, just muscle tightness, so they might just have an overactive pelvic floor, or it can be like psychological. So on an unconscious or a conscious level, they become afraid of the pain coming on, especially if they've had it in the past. Yeah, which it can just kind of come up randomly sometimes if you're not turned on enough.
Yeah.
And then they start to fear it. So that it becomes this like association of like about to have penetrative sex, I get scared, my body tenses up, and then that includes my pelvic floor, and then attempt penetration in that state, and of course it's painful.
And how do you overcome it?
So it can be a bit of a long process. A lot of the time it's helping people connect to pleasure. So figure out what makes them aroused, because that's going to help them to relax. It's also working through the fear. So we do that by I give my clients dilators, and they're like look like little dildos, and they start from like really small up to like a penis size. And slowly over time, they kind of have to get themselves used to like using one and not being afraid of it, and like feeling like if pain comes on, they'll just like relax and take it out, rather than like freaking out and being like, oh my God, what does this mean, for the future? So it's kind of working through the physical side, but also the psychological side, and helping them like connect to like what makes sex good for them.
Of course. Amazing. It's good to know. And obviously it's quite common, so people aren't alone in that. Yeah.
That's the thing though, I feel like you're really alone in a lot of situations with sex as women, because we don't get taught enough. Yeah. So you kind of like have this question mark over your head, and you don't know who or where, or like to ask the question to get it solved, or just wish it was more accessible.
100%. It's so important to have those conversations. Something that's a little bit contentious, which was a very popular question. Does size matter?
Okay, I love this question.
So,
the answer is it depends. So I'm going to get a little bit sciencey now, but there are things called accelerators and brakes. So these are things that turn your sexual system on and turn your sexual system off. So for someone where size is really important for them, it could be a huge accelerator. So if you think about like an equation, maybe it's like a 5. And, for someone, they like size, it's important, but it's not like huge, maybe it's a 2. And if you were to have sex with someone and they're kind of like, maybe they're not like kissing you heaps, they don't have like lots of game or whatever, but they've got a really big, beautiful dick, then you could just be like, I love this and I'm keen, because it's like driven my like equation up really high. But if you're someone that, thinks it's like a 2, then you might need other things to kind of get you in, get
is there
you
a
up
physical
there.
difference? Because surely it needs to be some like certain size to hit certain places.
I would say strictly physically, no, it doesn't matter, because there is so much more to sex than purely just penetration.
Yeah.
When you think about having penetration, you're also, the other person is like touching you. They're like grabbing your ass. They're, caressing your skin. They're licking you. They're kissing you. They're looking you in the eye. They're talking dirty.
Yeah.
They're pulling your hair. They're all of these other things that can happen that, yes, if, the person's dick is the right size for your vagina, like that's good. But there's so many other things that you can, also enjoy during sex.
Yeah. Of course.
To take sex past just penetration, because obviously the concept is a lot of people think it's just penetration, but a lot more to do.
Yes.
Sexologist, amazing, but you also run Posmo, which is a sex toy concept store. Can you explain to us what that is? Because it sounds really interesting.
Yes, absolutely. So when the store was set up, I really wanted it to be created on under a philosophy of queer theory, which is basically a sociological theory that argues against us using sexual orientations because they say that it is really limiting. It limits people, and it also creates disadvantage because there is kind of in our culture this like hierarchy that is formed. You know, people are born as being assumed as heterosexual, and then they have to like deviate. And that deviation is kind of seen as like, you know, you go down the hierarchy. We don't all think that, but like, you know, on an institutional level, that's just kind of what happens. So I really love the sound of like queer theory. So I wanted to create a store that like embodied that philosophy. So Posmo is all kind of about that. We definitely accept and love and appreciate everyone's sexual orientation, but we kind of say, okay, that's your sexual orientation, but what does that mean for you? Like, who are you attracted to? What do you like doing? So yeah, that was kind of like the philosophy that I started the store with. And then, yeah, in terms of like the actual shopping experience, I really wanted to create a space where it was like a really pleasing and like beautiful journey from like shopping for the toys to receiving the toys. And that's kind of what we've done at like the website is like quite aesthetically pleasing, and you can like choose the toy quite easily. It's like packaged really nicely, and it comes, you know, arrives to your door pretty quickly. Yeah. And I just wanted that experience to be really stress free, because I know for a lot of people they don't know what they like, and it can be a bit hard. Yeah. So, yeah.
Beautiful.
Everyone needs sex toys in their lives. So I'm sure you're making a lot of people happy. Yeah,
definitely. I guess on the topic, like sex toys in sex between a couple, what kind of, I guess, how can they spice things up?
Yeah. Well, I guess it kind of comes down to what every individual person is into. Yeah. It's going to be so varied. Some people love butt stuff. Some people love clit stuff. Some people love dildos, strap-ons, or like nipple clamps. Yeah. There's lots of different things. If you're curious, I would say broach the topic with your partner. Like, and you know, if it's a bit scary to just be like, hey, I want to use a sex toy, maybe you can just be like, oh, I saw this like thing on Instagram and it seemed interesting. Have you seen it? You can kind of just like slowly slide the topic in there.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I love it.
And Posmo stands for?
Postmodern sexuality.
Beautiful.
I guess there's a lot of questions surrounding penetrative sex and how a lot of people with vulvas don't climax from just that. They need clitoris stimulation. Mm-hmm. That's just normal. That's just how it is, right?
Yeah, I think the statistic is only 30% of vulva owners can come with just penetrative stimulation.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people saying that they've never orgasmed. Yep. And so people with vulvas are saying that they've never orgasmed. Yeah. Is there any way that you could like give some suggestions on how to see if you can orgasm? Because I know some people can't. Yep. So what are ways that you can help people can help themselves in achieving that big O?
I mean, there's going to be many different reasons why people wouldn't be able to orgasm. The most common reason is not pursuing their pleasure. So pleasure is what makes you feel turned on and aroused and takes your arousal from a 5 out of 10 up to a 10 out of 10, which is an orgasm. And yeah, a lot of people really struggle to tap into what makes them feel good, and that can come from, you know, lots of different reasons, like internalized shame, anxiety around being sexual. So, you know, those things might need to be worked on before trying to explore your pleasure. But, you know, things like masturbation are a great way. Trying to do masturbation meditations, which are...
what's that?
Yeah, so you can do like guided masturbation meditations where, you know, it might go over like half an hour or an hour, and they guide you to like touch your body in certain ways, and then slowly, you know, you go to your vulva and they'll guide you to do like full vulva pleasure rather than just going straight for the clit and like expecting something to happen. Yeah, and those meditations are really good because you're like, oh, someone else is like worrying about it for me. You know, someone else is guiding me. I don't have to like know how to do this. Yeah. Yeah, I would say just spend some time solo, touching your body and just noticing, does that feel good? Does that not feel good? And start broader body and then go slowly, you know, to the vagina and the vulva.
That's such a big topic on Sugar and Spice, like learning yourself, 100%. Not just in relationships, but your body and very important.
Yeah, get to know the vulva, get to know what you like, touch yourself.
Yes.
All great things. So Sugar and I have decided we want to play this game with our guests called Heaven and Hell, where we read to you your icks that you sent to us. Follow the Fumble page because we ask a lot of questions there. So we're going to read out some of your icks and then the other two people say whether it's heaven or hell.
We'll have a little debate.
And
we're going to be very different because we have very different icks, I reckon.
Hit us, Lexi.
All right. Baby voices.
Heaven. I'm so guilty.
I'm so guilty because this person was like couples and people who do baby voices, lol. I'm like, I'm so guilty of that.
I am so guilty
I
of
love
that.
it. I'm like, but what do you reckon it is? What do you reckon the psychology behind it is? Like, why do we go back to like that baby?
I mean, if you think about relationships, they bring out like your attachment
Okay.
that you like form with your parents. That's what attachment styles are all about.
Wow.
So maybe it's something to do with that.
Interesting.
Wow. Yeah, I'm so pro.
Yeah, 100%. I love it. And I'm like,
Only with a partner though. You
Oh,
can do it
yeah.
with someone you just met.
no, but then like I wonder how we're perceived in public. And I find with my boyfriend we have this like whole world which no one else knows about, which I find so beautiful. We like talk in a certain way and we have all these jokes and it's so silly. And I'm like, if anyone, I always say to him, if your friends were to hear you speak like this, what would they think? It's just so, it's really cute though.
I had a partner where we spoke so much in baby voices that we weren't talking in any other way. We had to actually stop.
I love that.
That's so good. So we're all advocating for heaven on this one.
I don't know. I think I'm hell, but I think I'm also guilty of doing it. So I think that's something I need to
Oh my God, I
spend some
absolutely
time
love it.
sitting with.
That's so good. Oh,
Okay, heaven or hell, not in masculine energy, doesn't lead, provide, etc.
hell.
Hell.
Oh, I don't know that one. That's hard. It can be hell, but it can be heaven.
Yeah. I think I spent a long time, like I grew up with a very stereotypical masculine father and brother. And I think that's what I'm just familiar with. And I think I went against that for a while, but then I've come back to like, this is what makes me feel secure in having that very, I know it's like very stereotypical and heteronormative, but I just like to feel like I'm with, I think also because I'm quite a dominant person and I need to feel that somebody is more dominant than me, or I feel like I'm in my masculine energy and I don't like to be in that.
Yeah, no, I love that. I feel like I'm kind of going through something similar where I was like raised that way, rejected it for a bit and have definitely come back around
Full
to
circle,
it.
yeah.
I think that happens a lot when you're raised like in ethnic or migrant families. When you're growing up, you alienate it for some reason because we've all done it where like, I don't know, you want to take a step back from that life, but then you always come back to your heritage and your roots in some way.
Runs deep.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It runs deep, for sure.
So crazy. Weird obsession with star signs. It's a tricky one because I love them.
Hell for me, even though I do it.
Yeah.
I think if a man was doing that to me, hell.
Like, what's your birth
But
chart?
I'm going to go through your whole chart and analyze every
100%.
single part of it, your primal astrology, your animal, like everything. But hell the other way around. The double standards.
Yeah, I think I'm the same, to be honest. Yeah. I'm trying to think. Yeah, my current boyfriend doesn't know anything about them and I've tried to read his birth chart to him and he's just like, I just don't understand it.
What do you think, Laura?
I'd probably be hell if it was like a weird obsession, like weirdly obsessed.
Yeah. It says weird, so I'm going to put the emphasis on weird.
Yeah.
Overconfidence.
Overconfidence. What does that look like?
Like a little bit of arrogance.
Yeah, hell. Oops.
Hell.
That's hell for me.
I would say
I don't think it is for you,
insecurity.
Spice. I think you kind of love that. You do.
Not arrogance, but I like assertiveness. And I like someone who's so sure of themselves to the nth degree. Like they know, because I'm like that.
Yeah.
So if I'm not with someone like that, for me, like my biggest turn off is insecurity. And of course we all have insecurities. But if I'm with a man who really like,
Also
I don't know,
insecure in the relationship rather than in themselves. Is that what you mean?
both.
Yeah.
Like if they just too, like, this sounds so cunty, but if they're too immersed in their own self-deprecation, if they're really hard on themselves, and they don't see if you don't see yourself as great, how am I supposed to see you as that? Especially very early on. If I don't sense that this person has a very like strong sense of self, like I've done the work. If they haven't, it's probably my biggest turn off personally.
Did you mean like confidence in, like overly confident, like too much?
Like arrogant, because that to me is hell.
Because for me, that's like insecurity, actually.
No, I agree. Yeah.
But if it's like they're secure and they're confident and they kind of like stick to that, that's heaven.
Yeah.
That's true.
This is so materialistic, but it came up 4 times, which is so random.
Yeah.
Men in thongs. Men in Vaginismus.
Hell?
Yeah, I'm going to say hell.
Hell if they're not on the beach.
Yeah, but even at the beach, like slides.
I mean, I don't care.
Like
with
socks.
thongs. I'm like here for it. But
it's just strange it came up 4 times.
I think in terms of dressing, I'm really not judgmental on the way that they dress. Like if they have their own style and they own it, I'm like here for it. There's nothing that can really ick me.
Yeah.
Even if it's like jeans and runners, those ripped jeans that all the girls hate, like I don't care. You can wear that if you love it. Like I'm here for it. But yeah, thongs, if you're wearing thongs outside of a beach or pool location, there's my judgment coming in. Hell. It just, no.
I'm hell. Another one to do with the feet. I don't know why, but trainers with no socks. So random. So specific.
I guess hell?
Yeah. Like feet.
I like feet.
You have like smelly feet in the trainers.
Not smelly feet, yeah. I mean, I guess hell. Men that take more time to get ready than you. 12-step skincare routine. Oh.
That could be both.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of both. Like I like a little bit of the self-love, but maybe not 12-step skincare routine.
I guess if they're becoming anxious while they're doing it, if they're becoming anxious and they're like stressed, I'd be like, oh, it's a bit hell.
Yeah.
But if it's like they just want to look good and they're owning that, that's hot.
Yeah.
A guy who double messages when you haven't replied, this says instant block for me. It's like whatever, I agree. I'm like double text, double call. I will call 100%. You, I will spam you. I don't get shy about that stuff and I don't like find it like a thing. I guess this depends on like where you are in the relationship scale.
Yeah.
Like if a guy, you've just started speaking to him and he keeps incessantly messaging you because you haven't replied. And if it's maybe like question mark.
Oh, but if you don't like someone, then that's going to be an ick regardless. If they don't text you or text, Yeah. But I feel like if you like someone, surely them double texting you isn't a problem. I mean, I don't know, for me. So... neutral.
Someone who's the loudest in the room. Is it a turn on or a turn off?
My biggest turn on is the man who's the one that everyone's looking at the room, the one who commands energy and attention. He doesn't have to be, not the loudest, but the one with the strongest presence for sure.
I prefer a bit of a quieter presence, personally. This is social inspired. So I like a calm, like a quiet, reserved energy holder. How about you, Laura?
Yeah, that's hard. I really agree with what you were saying, with what you were saying, Raquel, about like the energy, but maybe like the loudest in terms of just being like obnoxious and saying stupid shit and just like talking to talk.
Yeah.
Hell.
Yeah. Hell.
Talking about children on the first date.
I love it.
Heaven. I'm like, that's so me. I'm
open
like,
book.
Kids?
Yeah, it's like open book. Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah.
It's like clarity. It's just like openness.
Yeah.
I think.
And I think like just not even kids, just like your intention.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like your past relationships, like if that shit needs to come up, great. I think it's so nice to like put it all on the table.
100%.
That's another interesting one, I guess, talking about pasts. Because we spoke about this in the last episode.
Talking about exes.
Yeah.
Is that an ick? Is that a...
Not an ick, I guess, but like, because some people are so against it, like don't want to hear anything about it. I think obviously you're going to be open about your past. Like it's a natural way to talk, to reflect on yourself.
You don't want it to be compared
against it.
You don't want it to be like...
Well, you hope someone's not being like, well, you're not like my ex.
Yeah, but I think that's how it's done a lot of the time.
Really?
In comparison, yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
People feel insecure.
Yeah. But I'm a big believer in like people feel insecure in relationships when they're made to feel insecure 100%. In a relationship.
Totally.
Like they'll stress and they'll fret. But if your partner makes you feel really secure in your relationship, then I think a lot of that anxiety goes away. I mean, of course, there's like insecure attachment styles where people will maybe see a small thing as a bigger thing or their mind will run on different like...
That was me. Like the shift I've had this year, I've actually changed attachment styles, which I didn't know was possible. Wow. I was such an anxious attachment style and then the right person just... shifts your whole perspective on relationships.
And that's so crazy because I'm so avoidant attachment style, and for the first time, like, I'm so in love.
Oh,
And
baby.
like I'm going through all of my like running, because usually I'll find something as a reason to run away, or like I will, but with this person, like, I'm really working through my own shit.
Yeah.
Because like I would never want to lose him.
So nice.
Who am I? I can't believe I just said that. That's so not me.
Are you sugar?
I'm dead.
Love you, baby.
Laura, thank you so much for coming on. So insightful.
You have to come back.
Yeah,
You have
please.
to come
I reckon we
back.
should do a part 2.
100%. So
Yeah.
if you guys have more questions, ask. We loved having you here today. All the sexy conversations. I've
Thank
learned
you
so much.
I learned so much too.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Done.